Jonathan and Thomas from Redefining Manliness podcast. Welcome to 100% Dad Interviews with Dads.
Thanks for having us.
So start out, tell me a little bit about yourselves. Jonathan, go first because you're in the middle of the screen. And so give me a little background on you, and then Thomas, a little background on you, and then one of y'all take the lead and tell me about this Redefining Manliness podcast.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So like I said, obviously my name is Jonathan. 29, going about 30 this year, so super excited for that. It'll be a big year. I got a whole bunch of big stuff happening this year, hitting 30, having my first child in June, so my wife and I are excited for that. Been married for 7 years now, together for 10. I'm currently a worship pastor here at a church here in Colorado, but before then I was in the military, did 6 years in the Army as an MP. So a little bit of different worlds, and yet surprisingly so, there's so much that intertwines and comes together in clergy and military police, which was fun to find that out. But we know Thomas and I, we've met 4 or 5 years ago ish. Yeah. Talked about putting together a podcast. We had some content that we wanted to share with other men, dads, fathers, husbands, brothers, all that good stuff. So we started putting that together about almost a year and a half ago. But we actually started 6 months ago that we actually started putting content out. But it took us about a year of talking to convince ourselves to do it and get on the same schedule. And I mean, obviously last year was ridiculous anyway, so it kind of threw everything for a loop. But here we are now, man.
Cool. And Thomas?
Yeah, so Jonathan and I actually met working at the church. I was working there in the accounting department, and you kind of wonder how a worship guy and an accounting person come together. That's it. You put them, working together at a church. Yeah. And the friendship blossomed, and we started the podcast. But for me specifically, I am married to my wife of 14 going on 15 years this September, and we've got 3 kids. I've got twin 7-year-old boys and a almost 2-year-old daughter. She turns 2 in about a month, and so we put about a 5-year gap in between, because when you have twins the first time around, it takes a little time to recover and see if you even want to have any more. So we did, and we're actually planning on trying for more. So we're in this for the long haul. Right now, currently, I work as a personal financial coach. So I help people in their personal finances to create budgets, get out of debt, and save for their future. But yeah, that's me. And then, the podcast, like Jonathan said, we met at the church. We had a great friendship, and then, we started thinking about this podcast, and, it took about a year of planning and kind of getting ready before the first episode actually came out, and then the rest is history. We've been doing it since November,
2020. Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Which church is this?
Victory Church in Westminster, Colorado. So whenever you're in Colorado doing the 100 Dad Tour, come on by, man.
Big Creek?
Westminster. Victory.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So Victory Church, where's Westminster?
So it's a suburb north of Denver. We're about 15 minutes north of downtown Denver. So, I mean, honestly, we could call it Denver, but you know how they like to do. We have to break it out into suburbs and counties and stuff, but it's pretty much Denver.
I think Colorado is the state we have stayed the most in.
Really?
You know what? It's probably Texas now.
Okay.
But we did 2 legs of Colorado. In the beginning, where we kind of came across from Kansas, we did 11 Mile State Park, which is about an hour from Colorado Springs. Then we went to Navajo State Park in the southwest by Durango. Then we went over to Rifle, which is west of Denver. And then when we got done with all the Utah, Idaho, Montana's, Dakotas, Minnesota, all that, when we came through Wyoming, we did Denver, and we stayed in the Cherry Tree State Park, South Denver.
Yep. South Denver, Cherry Creek.
Cherry Creek. And then we did what's south of Denver, Colorado Springs we stayed in, and then we went over to the Great Sand Dunes.
Yeah.
So we've done fun. We've done 6 stops in Colorado. So unfortunately, I've already missed you.
Well, next time.
I didn't know. We like Colorado though. We like the. It's a very active city, or not city, very active state. Yeah. And we like that. We like hiking. We like getting outdoors, and that seems to be something everybody in Colorado has in common.
Yeah, one is the cool part about living here that everywhere, whether you're on the the East Coast, East Plains, or the West on the mountains, or down south, you got Rifle and Durango, and you're like everywhere. There's something. Whether you're skiing, snowboarding, sand dunes, the Cherry Creek Lake reservoirs, fishing, hunting. I mean, we've got it all. So it's so much fun. Which surprisingly, I mean, Thomas, I got to throw you under the bus here, buddy. Thomas does not like the outdoors, which is probably why he moved to Florida. He's like, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to do all that. So I'm going to head to Florida instead.
So you left the church and moved to what part of Florida?
We moved to Orlando, a suburb right outside the Orlando area.
I know it real well. Which part?
Yeah, Apopka.
Yep. Know it real well.
Yeah.
Cool.
We moved here. All of my wife's family and my family is in this area. We're about 20 minutes from everyone. We had moved out to Colorado originally in 2008 to buy a business, and we were there for 12 years. Continued at the church, serving in the church, working at the church, and then just kind of got to the point where we felt like our kids just needed to be able to grow up around cousins and grandparents and things like that. We had no one out in Colorado, family-wise, and so we decided to head back to Florida and did that about
2 weeks ago,
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
wow, yeah. Still getting used to it.
Yeah.
All right, so so business and finance is a natural attraction to me because those are some of my favorite topics. So what business did you go out to buy in Colorado or attempt to buy?
We moved out to buy a franchise. It was a children's gymnastics facility, and my wife was more of the gymnast than I was, but I was, we had worked at the company for, I guess, 5 years before we bought the location. They contacted us and said, hey, we've got two options, one in Colorado and one in Syracuse. And we said, no question, we're going to Colorado.
Yeah.
And so,
right choice.
So we went to Colorado and ran that business. We owned a second location down in Colorado Springs during that time. We owned them for overall about 8 years, got out of the business, and then that's when we started working at the church. She started working there before I did, and then they recruited me on the accounting side. Then the rest is history. She still works there. I branched out, and opened my own business as a personal financial coach in the last during COVID in the last year, and so I started doing that, but she's still working for the church now, and she's just doing her job remotely. They're kind of forming a position.
Are you like independent on your own personal advisor, or are you like through a program or another I don't know company or whatever it is?
So kind of yes to all of it. I own my own business. It's my practice and everything, but I got certified through the Dave Ramsey organization and got all my training there. So I come from that school of thought, but I implement my own style and philosophy.
It's a good school of thought.
Yeah.
Well, you always ran the financial piece stuff here as well, and I think you're probably still doing that remotely and stuff. So it was a good segue, good tie-in, and now he's helping me out with my finances, make sure we're all set up for the baby and for the future and all that stuff. Because apparently now I got to stop spending like crazy and start thinking about the next 20 years or so.
I'm telling you, not having payments and being debt free is like, it's a really cool, amazing thing to actually be in, especially when you get to the point of house paid off.
Yeah.
Because at that point it gives you so much peace of mind and freedom to kind of do whatever you want. Because if you screw up, if you blow everything,
you still got a roof over your head.
You're better than 98% of the population.
Yeah.
All you got to do is, get to the grocery store and buy a few things. So
so that's the goal, and Thomas is helping us out step by step, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Good. So another question. So dads that are looking into franchises, and franchises are a big thing. Mm-hmm. So my natural personality, I like the franchise idea if I'm the guy with the franchise and selling it. As a franchisee, I like it in my head for like the first year. Yeah. And then after that, I never want to pay that, that ongoing 6% or whatever it is. It hurts me inside. But I mean, that's the exchange for franchise. They give you a system, they give you a process, they get you going. So what's your opinion on that for dads that are looking into a good thing, bad thing? Obviously a little bit of both, but what was your experience?
in terms of the franchise model, I think that I overall had a pretty good experience. We got what we paid for in the royalties. We were getting that support from the corporate office. We were getting their marketing and their brand, pre-set up. The company had been around for 30 years, so it was good for us to kind of get on at that point. I don't know if it's worth 6% of what your income is, because it's 6% of your income, not 6% of your profits, or at least in our model it was, because they want to make sure they get their money off the top.
Yeah, that's pretty normal.
Yeah, and so there are certain models that I would definitely go into. I would probably go into a Chick-fil-A type of model that, you're not going to not make money with Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And so, but what we were in, it was a niche, a small niche. And so it was good. We loved it. We made a living out of it for 8 years. If you want to go that route, there's pros and cons to everything. I mean, obviously you're going to get that support and that backing, and you're going to get that marketing and branding that, you wouldn't have on your own. And it's going to be, if you go out on your own and try and go toe to toe with that franchise, overall, you're probably going to lose. But there are certain things you can do independently, and separate. You just kind of have to know your market and do your research as to what you're getting into. If you put up, an independent burger joint right next to a McDonald's, maybe you succeed, maybe you don't. If you do, a kids gymnastics facility like I did, and you're separated remote on your own, and there's nothing in the territory near you, you're probably going to succeed. So, I think that you just have to do your research and be smart about it.
Well, I don't know anything about business, but I would assume it's probably a good leg up, kind of a good starter point for anybody that wants to start, right? You got the brick and mortar building, you got all that figured out. And I would imagine somebody that wants to get into business, they're like, okay, maybe I'll start off here, kind of learn the ropes, and then jump into a whole business thing. But even now, right, that was brick and mortar, that almost feels antiquated in some instances, right? We have so much online business, so much kind of what you're doing, helping out people at home and stuff. So
yeah, and the difference is we didn't start a brand new location. So ours was a resale. And so that was turnkey for us. We had to have the capital to go in and start working, and we were able to get to work right away. We didn't have to wait for the building to be built or anything like that.
That's always nice.
So it was,
you already have your customers.
Yep, exactly. We didn't have to go find anybody. So that was beneficial for us. So I liked that route in terms of it. I mean, if you're going to go into a franchise, maybe you can find one for sale if you're willing to relocate to an area that someone's trying to get out of the business. And we got ours at a deal. It was failing at the time we took it on, and we took it on and increased it, and then we were able to.
So, what percentage of customers did you lose because of an ownership transfer?
Percentage wise, I'd say probably less than 5%.
Oh, yeah, that's real good.
Yeah, it was good. The previous owner did do a good job setting us up well with the customers. Didn't necessarily do a good job with the business himself, but he did a good job making sure that everybody stayed with us and didn't leave because he was leaving. So that was nice. I don't think that's going to be the case for everybody, unfortunately. But
no, I've heard some horror stories about, you're dropping big bucks on a company and then all of a sudden half the customers leave because they like Johnny.
Yeah.
All right. So Jonathan's having a kid, first kid, age 30. Any nieces, nephews? Did you have little siblings or anything? Or are you going into this totally blind?
Well, not totally blind. I've got two nephews. One is 6 and one is about to be a year old. But I mean, they were all living out in New Mexico while I was here in Colorado. So I wasn't really around for the baby stuff.
So you haven't changed a diaper?
No, not in 15 plus years. No. So I think I was 15 when my youngest sister was born. So yeah, it's been about 15 years since I've touched baby food.
So at that age, you have a little bit. You've seen your parents deal with an infant.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got history, nothing recent. My up until this point, my experience with kids was, let me hold it for 5 minutes. All right, that's cute. It's crying. You can have it back.
Yeah.
And in this case, I don't get to do that anymore.
You can have it back.
Well, I mean, you can have your child back.
Yeah, I mean, the infant stuff it's fatiguing. I mean, that's really all. And usually the hospitals, especially for first-time parents, they usually have classes and things like that on just the basics, how to swaddle, how to, feed, breastfeeding classes. And I mean, really your job is mostly, the burden's really on mom. And our job's kind of to support mom. Because honestly, especially if you're breastfeeding, I mean,
I can't do anything for the first 3 months, right? I can change a diaper and burp at night.
I mean, you can, you'll get into pumping and things like that to where you have a bottle and you can figure out how to get ahead on that so mom can skip and get 4 hours of sleep and you can take that one in the middle. But, moms are so sensitive to the crying and everything anyway. They're still waking up, but at least they get to roll over and, go back to sleep. Also, I think they have to pump it's been a while. I mean, it's been, I guess, 4 years. But I think they have to pump every, X amount of time. So sometimes they have to wake up regardless just to pump. But diapers and all that, I mean, you figure that out. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah, when I figured, and what I've been telling people, I've been telling everybody, I'm like, listen, I have no choice but to figure it out, right? I'm not going to go anywhere.
Oh,
like I'm not going to dip out and say, well, you know what, figure it out yourself. Good luck. Like that's not going to happen.
You know what I did? 100% dad. I really like kids, and so I was pretty involved. But looking back, I realized I started a business every time we had a kid. So that meant, when you start a business from scratch, you have to put a lot of time and effort into it. And, so it'd get to a certain point, like that 6-8 week mark of infancy, and be like, listen, I got to make sure I get some sleep because I got to go get customers in the morning. I got to, this thing is tinkering on the brink of whatever. So, I definitely did plenty of feedings. I was always there, but I definitely made sure, looking back, I didn't know it at the time that I started a business with every kid.
Wow.
And that probably came from fear of I've got to provide for another mouth. So it was kind of like, this is how I provide. I got to create a new income stream.
Right.
But my wife's argument is that it was a way for me to get away. so I don't have to deal with the baby.
Well, she may not be wrong, but it might have been subconscious.
You were both right.
Yeah, subconscious truth, which I can't control.
Yeah. And something I'm learning now, and I had a really good friend of mine, a good mentor of mine, speak into my life recently. Said, slow it down. I'm a really high performance kind of guy. Like if something needs to get done, I'm gonna jump in and do it. Especially in the church role. I love being in ministry. I love being involved in that. And I always feel like, hey, if I want to be working in ministry, if I want to be serving, God in my community, I want to do as much as I can. I want to extend myself to the full of my capabilities and take on every role that I can take. For example, now, I'm doing worship. I'm doing on online, getting ready for a new location. Like I'm getting involved as much as I can. And I came to our senior pastor, who's a good mentor of mine. And I said, hey, I want to do more. And he realized, was like, listen, that's great. I think you can. You're about to have a baby. Learn to slow down, learn to figure out, like, this is work, this is home, where does it intertwine, where do you need to separate it, and learn to you're about to go into a whole new role and learn to kind of slow it down just a little bit. So it's something I'm learning now. I'm like, okay, cool. Because I'm with you. I'm like, I want to provide. I want to make sure that we're meeting our needs, spiritually, physically, financially, emotionally, all of that stuff. But I also got to figure out, okay, slow down, enjoy it, enjoy the baby, enjoy the crying and all of that stuff, because it's going to pass. And then I'm like, all right, let's do another one. So
it's very true. It's certainly easier said than done when that thing is colicky.
Yeah.
Well, and when you got two of them at the same time.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't even.
You're a champ, bro. You're a champ.
So we, going back to the classes, the hospital having classes, we were in one of those parenting classes, and we made it to 3 of the 6 classes before my wife went into labor early. And we were like, well, I guess we're not going to learn anymore from those because we're going to get the real deal to learn from. So yes, our boys were born 10 and a half weeks early. And so we spent 6 weeks in the NICU. But the good news coming out of the NICU is they had them on a perfect, fantastic schedule when we came home. And so they ate, slept, poop. Like it was just, like clockwork.
So that's a controversial subject in the mom world of sleep train and scheduling your children. And I'm a big fan because we didn't do it for our first one until about 6 months in when it was just driving us crazy.
Yeah.
And then after that, it is amazing. And we've got great kids. They've turned out well. We did not destroy their psyche or their subconscious. They're not evil.
Yeah.
But sleep training was big. You mentioned not being able to finish the classes and spending so much time in the hospital. I assume your story is similar of those nurses in the delivery area are freaking amazing.
Oh yeah.
Like they teach you so much. Like they teach you the real deal.
Yes.
Like everything's kind of theoretical in the classes, and then like they show you, they teach you. They have such a wealth of experience, and lean on them heavy.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we had two totally different experiences with the twins on one side and having the NICU nurses there to care for us, and the babies, around the clock for 6 weeks. And, to see if you ever want to get, kind of freaked out about something, take a 3-pound baby and watch a nurse just go scoop and change their diaper and bathe them and put them back in the little bin. They do it all the time, so they're not even worried about it. But man, I was like so gentle and trying to figure this out, and so that was interesting. And then when we had our daughter, she was born about 5 weeks early, but she didn't have any NICU time, and we got maybe 2 days of in the hospital, and they were like, all right, you're out on your own. So they were still helpful, but it's a lot different of an experience from a NICU to a labor and delivery.
So as a small business owner, did you just prepay in cash, or did you have insurance that covered it?
No, we had insurance, and so we had a deductible that we had to pay. And at that time, we weren't set up financially to be able to pay it all outright in cash.
Okay.
So we set up. We had an HSA, and so we set up payment plans through the HSA. So
Perfect.
It was all paid through there. We just had to do it over time.
Jonathan, I assume you have insurance through the church, I assume.
Yeah, and we're actually doing prepaying like a lot of all her doctor stuff now, because there's some stuff obviously the insurance covers the majority of it, but there's a few things like specialists and stuff. So we're like, let's just prepay now, whatever we can before we get
whatever your. So this is great advice for new dads. So there's a couple things I think dads, just good little hot tips. Whatever your insurance will do, and we prepaid for ours. And so they would cover like up to, I think it was 4 days or 3 days, one of those two, for a C-section, because all of our first baby was breached in the hospital we went to. Once you've had a C-section, you have to do C-sections after that. So I think the recovery time, what we prepaid was like 3 to 4 days, and they would always try and release us early. And the first time we did that, and we just, we're ready to go home. So we did. Second and third, we put our foot down and said, no, we're staying.
Yeah.
But 4 days is covered. We're staying
4 days. Well, we're staying.
And it's kind of like what Ross Geller in France. Like, we are staying till 11:59 because we get kicked out at noon. For a few reasons. The first one, we went home early, and then like my wife's milk hadn't fully come in, and that first night was tremendously difficult. And then he ended up, like, they were kind of wondering he might have been jaundiced, might not have been jaundiced. So we ended up having to go back for another day. And then they were trying to charge us for that day, even though we had prepaid for 4 days, left at like 2, and they came back for 1, and they were questionable in between. They're trying to charge us for another day. And we're like, well, we paid for 4. So we ended up settling with that. But after that, so we just stay. It's good for mom, especially if the hospitals will, like, they will take the babies into the baby room, so mom gets a little bit more rest. I think the hospital we had a kid at the same hospital about 2.5 years apart. The same hospital, the experiences were much better each time we got there. I mean, this was 2010, 2013, 2016, and it dramatically improved each time. Which is weird because I mean those are pretty modern dates. You would think they'd had it figured out by 2010.
By 2010.
But there was a couple things I remember getting advice or that we definitely try to do the second or third time, making sure the baby latches on right away. With regular delivery, mom's right there. With our first C-section, they whipped the baby out. They said the hospital or the surgery room's too cold. So they whip the baby out of there real quick. And it's, medically and I guess bonding wise and like how the baby thinks and reacts, it's important to get latched to the mom's breast, like within an hour of being delivered. And so like, that's something like, that was my goal, because dads have to have goals, right?
Right.
I'm like, within an hour, like get that baby to mom.
Stitch her up, get the baby here. Like you got 60 minutes.
Yeah, because dad, in that situation, dad stays with the baby and mom stays in the surgical room. So that was something we pushed hard on, was getting the baby on there. But the second and third, they let us stay in. And they let the baby stay with mom. So I don't know if they raised the temperature or what, or they just, did enough studies where,
figured out it's fine. We were taking through it and talking through it, and we thought for a second about doing natural birth, right? Having a home birth and having somebody come here and get a midwife and stuff like that. We still haven't fully settled on it. We're actually looking at a kind of a in-between place, so it's not a hospital, but it's not here at the house. Like we'll go to them and they'll do the natural birth and stuff. But
like a birthing center.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So she'll have a midwife and all that stuff. But I was like, you pick whatever you want. Like this is you're the one pushing the baby out. Like you do whatever you want to do. I'm there, whatever we have to pay more or less or whatever.
Those seem pretty cool. We couldn't do it because our first baby was breached. So,
right.
Because my wife was trending in that direction. We went to some birthing centers and checked them out. Yeah. And basically the thing is, if something goes wrong, it's, hey, how close are you to the hospital? How fast can we get this taken care of? But they're usually pretty knowledgeable. Gosh, there's a few other things.
I'm surprised you say that there was controversial on I'm going to push back a little bit or pull back a little bit to the sleeping schedule. Because we have a friend of ours who's on the quirky side, but his kids are the best behaved kids I have ever met, like in my life. And him and his wife, they swear by this book, Becoming Baby Wise. And it's all about that, about like the sleeping schedule and really having the baby adjust to your schedule versus you making a schedule for the baby. And
yeah, that book is controversial.
Yeah, is it? And but I'll tell you,
I'm on board with it. We did it and it worked well, and the kids have turned out great.
I've seen he's got like 6 or 7 kids now. I lost count, but all of them are like phenomenally behaved. Some of the best kids I've ever met, hands down.
Especially when they're younger, like toddlers walking, like they'll tell you when nap time is.
Yeah.
Like they'll go to their grandparents' house who try and spoil them, and they'll be like, no, I can't stay up anymore. It's time for bed. And they'll just grab their blankie and walk off to bed.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's awesome.
It really is nice. So another thing at the hospital I just thought of was the first time we went in, they're always taking blood and things like that, checking levels, and they'll come in all throughout the night. And if you ask, you can request, you can try and get them to sync up that for when they're waking you to take pills or give drugs, or you can get it all done at the same time, or they can make their best effort that way. Because I think our first time in there, again, it was only 2 nights, I think, but she never got any sleep. Like it was every 30, 45 minutes, somebody was coming in. It was either the baby coming in to be fed or somebody going in to take blood or, getting poked or just checking on things. And, and we were told that we can request that all those things kind of line up more.
Oh, nice.
They make an extra effort to do that so mom can get some sleep. So something to kind of,
okay. Keep that in mind too.
It always made me feel good as a man when I had a job to do, and like there were some specific things that I could control, and I'm the gatekeeper and whatnot. So,
I'm with you on that.
If it works for you,
that was one of my concerns. I'm like, listen, I want to be as helpful as I can. Like I'll go get you whatever you need, but I feel like I'm going to be useless. Like I'll be here to hold your hand and take pictures if you want me to. But so knowing that, I'm like, okay, cool. I can have some goals. Like, cool. I can tell the nurse to sync stuff up. I can put my foot down for the 4 days. I'm like, okay, cool. That gives me a little bit of.
No, so just put the good down. So you can do all the. I think I did probably all the diaper changes in the hospital.
Okay.
Mostly because my wife was cut open, so her abs were like sliced in half, so she couldn't even sit up.
Yeah.
So I think I did all the swaddling. Swaddling is like my favorite part of an infant. I don't know. I don't know if Jonathan
that's a little burrito thing, right? Like
you make them a burrito, and like you guys were in Colorado. You probably had some rodeo competitions. I mean, it's very similar. Like, how fast can you wrap that thing up and tie it up? And I mean, nobody could break out of my swaddle. I mean, I was an expert. It was a world-class swaddling.
I've wrapped a number of burritos in my day, so I hope I got some sort of training.
No, it's fun. It's good. And I mean, so yeah, I did all the swaddling, and all the diapers, and that's not all you can do. I mean, she has to do the feeding.
Yeah.
But you can take baby from mom to the carriage, crib, whatever. So.
Yeah. Good. Well, that gives me some ease knowing like, okay, cool. I can still help. I can still do something. Because obviously coming home, I know here, cool. I can do the night feeding. I can obviously change diapers here at home. I can help the baby upstairs, get the room ready. Like I'm doing a lot of pre stuff. Like I'm getting the nursery ready. I'm painting. I'm building out the crib, building out the changing station. Like I feel like I'm doing a lot pre, but I'm like, what am I going to be able to do post? So it's good to know that I can still help.
There's always diapers to change, like every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And those first ones, I mean, that first few days is just, it is nasty, tar. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you need a good like 12 grit sandpaper to get through that stuff.
So maybe we'll use disposable to start off with before we start with the cloth, because if they're going to be that bad, I'm not saving those.
When we first had a kid and we did like the baby registry and all, we went to probably Target, and we saw video monitors and we're like, what kind of paranoid parent, we're 80s babies would need a video monitor? I mean, that's ridiculous. And so we didn't get one. By our second or third kid, we had video monitors. So we got tired of like military crawling into the bed just to check on the baby. So then you could just have the visual. So there were a few.
Video monitors definitely where it's at. Ours, we still have ours. Only one of the two cameras still works. The microphone stopped working for a while, so I had like taken a drill to it to try and like it is running on its last legs. The battery doesn't charge. You have to kind of set the cord at a certain angle so that the wires inside actually touch. And that's the finance in me. Like I don't want to spend it. I know the ROI is not going to be as good on the third one or on the fourth kid, the third pregnancy, because we're only going to get to use it for probably one. And so then, what's the point? So I'm trying to make it last through one more, but my wife's got it on the list already. We're going to have to buy another one. So
dude, Facebook
Marketplace. Get one with solid range. I don't know what size house you have, but the better range, the better, because those walls and things really cut it down.
Okay.
But yeah, video monitors were, I just remember we made fun of people so hard, like that's so ridiculous. And then, second, third kid.
Yeah.
It's a necessity.
You learn, right? I mean, that's I guess that you hope to learn. That's the whole thing, right? I'm going into how hard could this be? This will be. And now I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's going to be a little harder. I'm learning.
We make fun of ourselves so hard for things we did with that first one, just stupid things that by the time you have your second and third, you're like an expert at it. You just don't even care. Like the way we would rock the baby and like slowly rock and try and sit down, but keep the motion going so we didn't disturb the baby. And by the second one, we're almost tossing like a football on the couch, like a nap.
Nice.
But yeah, it's fun. And the whole experience, you'll look back on it and be fond of it. But I mean, I don't know if you guys will end up doing formula at all. We didn't want to, but mom didn't make enough milk, or the kids are just stupidly hungry. So we would, breastfeed and then feed with the bottle. So I guess there was always an option for me, but there's ways to get involved.
The more conversations I have with other dads, the more I realize that my wife and I probably haven't talked enough about what we're going to do with this baby, because you just asked, are you going to formula or breastfeed? I'm like, I didn't know that was two things. Like I thought it was one or the other, like just breastfeed or do formula. So now I'm like, okay, hey babe, what are we going to do? Which formula are we going to use? So I'm always like, I try to find dads now. I go out of my way to find dads and just have conversations with them. And because something will come up, like, oh my gosh, is your wife going to go back to work after she has a hit, or does she want to stay home with the kid? I'm like, you know what? No idea. We should probably have that conversation. So it's opening up new combos for us, new things for us to figure out. So it's all kinds of fun.
And that kind of stuff, I think, you should try and, the financial situation might dictate it, but be prepared for it to change afterwards, because there'll be a lot of hormones, a lot of emotions, attachment, things like that. And, your wife may decide, hey, I want to go back to work after 8 weeks, and come 6-7 weeks, she might be telling you, I want to stay longer. I don't want to leave them. So I'll be prepared for that, because you can't script it too hard. Because you just don't know what those feelings are going to be.
Right.
Yeah. So at this point, we're thank God that we're in a good place financially, and Thomas is helping us get to an even better place. So I'm like, hey, listen, if you do want to stay home, cool, we can do that. We'll have to adjust a few things, but we can make that work. So we've got a little trip coming up, little baby moon, and we'll kind of spend some time to kind of get our heads together, put our plans together, and figure out what at least is what are we gonna put on paper, and then obviously that can change and stuff.
Well, and it's good to have a plan, but it is all going to change.
Yeah.
Especially with the first kid, it's all going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife, here's a prime example of it's all going to change is, my wife went into labor 10 and a half weeks early. And so that was at 29 weeks and 5 days she went into labor, and she was going to pack the hospital bag when she hit the 30-week mark. So she was 2 days away from packing the hospital bag. That's a whole different story in its own. Jonathon got that story on our podcast, but the night my wife went into labor with our kids, not so good. Not a very bright.
Not a great dad moment for you.
No.
You learned. It's all right.
I learned. Yeah. So, so what happened is I'm like a night owl, and I tend to stay up later and go to bed long after she does. And she was pregnant, and so she was going to bed even earlier because she was exhausted. So she went to bed, and I strolled into bed at about 12:15, and laid down, fell asleep for about 15, maybe 30 minutes. And she rolls over and touches me, and she's like, "I think my water just broke." And I was like, okay, well, 30 minutes of sleep. Here we go. Let's do this. So we get up, and we're waiting for her to call the doctor, and she calls the after hours line, and she's sitting in the bathroom, and she's waiting for them to call her back. And probably my least fine moment, I said, okay, well, if you've got this under control, I'm gonna go lay back down for a few minutes.
You live and you learn.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. So it gets worse.
Okay.
It does. So she says, so I couldn't actually end up falling back asleep. I was, too excited at that point. So I go back in a few minutes later. She's probably already fuming at me at this point. And she says, okay, they said, go ahead and come in. My water definitely broke, so we need to go in. And I said, okay. She said, we haven't packed the hospital bag yet. I said, okay, well, if you want to work on that, I'm going to take a shower real quick. Smooth. And then we can go.
Yeah. Her water just broke. She's covered in body fluids, but you need the shower.
I needed the shower. So,
oh man.
So yeah, that was.
It gives me hope, because I know I'm not gonna mess up nowhere near as bad as what you did. So I'm like, you know what? It's all right. I got good.
Yeah, you're good to go. So just if you ever do anything wrong, you should just tell Ken, hey, you should hear what Thomas did.
Yeah, that's right.
And I mean, to be fair, even you should help pack that bag, but you really. I mean, I've had 3 kids. I don't even know exactly what she wants. Obviously some socks, but she probably has some more comfortable socks she wants. Right. I don't know exactly what clothes she wants. I don't really go through her drawers and which shorts and shirts she likes better. So, I mean, it would be pretty difficult for us to, pack that portion of it, but certainly you could have grabbed her a phone charger. I mean,
I could have done something other than taking a shower.
A toothbrush and toothpaste.
See, that's another thing I learned. To this moment, I figured we'll just go to the hospital and she'll just wear a hospital gown for 4 days.
Yeah. Well, there's some truth to that. But she's probably not going to wear that hospital gown home. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Good to know. Pack a bag.
Yeah, bag helps. I'm trying to think. We were, we had a scheduled C-section, and I think we had to wake up at 6 a.m. to get there by 7. C-section was at 8, and around 4 o'clock, her water broke 2 hours before, and so that was our kids' way of just letting us know we never sleep again. So we had to wake up 2 hours earlier. So Thomas wins 10 weeks earlier. I've got a meme coming out probably in the next month or so about how men keep score.
Yeah,
and Way to go, Thomas. You win.
You know what? You can have that win. I don't want my kids coming out there.
Yeah,
no, 10 weeks early. But I think that's common with twins and triplets and all that.
Yeah, so 40 weeks is full term for a singleton, and then they were calling us for 36 would be full term for twins.
Okay.
And so then we were still 6.5 weeks earlier than that, which was unplanned, but they were totally fine and healthy. They just had to learn to breathe in the NICU and have the ventilators and CPAPs and stuff like that to help them out in the beginning. And then
now, were you guys on fertility treatments or anything like that, or was that just twins that just happened?
Nope.
Did they run in your family?
Nope, just a fluke. First time around. So we had no idea to expect that, or anything. So just so happened that that's how it went.
Well done.
Yeah. Well, and so then we thought, well, if it can happen once, it can happen again. So we saved everything, 2 of everything for 5 years going into the second one. Then we find out it's a singleton and a girl. So we have nothing. So, Yeah.
But now that Amber's nice and big, you can give me all that girl stuff and I'll use it.
Yeah, I mean, unless we have a
Florida
girl
and pick
time,
it up, but I'll give it back to you.
I will say that's one thing. There's really no need to ever buy so buy some stuff, but like kids' clothes and toys and books and things like that. Like buying them new is ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's no need. There is so much baby stuff out there and available that people A, just want to get rid of.
Yeah.
And B, that are just selling cheap at garage sales and thrift stores. And
we've got
baby stuff is way oversupplied.
Yeah, we've got a couple friend of ours that they're preparing to be foster parents. And so they don't know, babies to teenagers is what they could get. And they're just about done with that, so they'll be foster parents here coming up soon. But the girl, she's gone all out. She's like, she's found baby, toddler, kid, middle school, had like all this stuff, and she got extra. So she's always, hey, I got a crib for you guys. Hey, I got a baby toy. Hey, I've got clothes. Like, come pick it up. So we've got pretty much all the big stuff we need, and we haven't bought a single thing. So that's been super awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And for dads that don't have that friend that can supply them all, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, get on Craigslist, go to garage sales, go to thrift stores. It is so paying $10 for like a onesie or a shirt for $8 is just ridiculous. You can get 20 for $10 at a garage. I mean, people they're trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, I think the crib she gave us, I'm pretty sure she got it for free because somebody was like, it's been in my garage for 6 years and I just want to get rid of it. I thought about building a crib, and I trust my building skills enough to build a crib. My wife didn't trust my building skills enough to build a crib. She's like, let's get one. You can build
one on the third kid.
Yeah,
that would have been cool though.
Yeah. So
we actually use we use my crib that I used when my sister had it, I had it, my little brother had it. So it's from the 80s. And when my mom keeps everything, and so we actually use that for all 3 of our kids.
That's awesome.
And when we got the first one, my wife didn't want it because it had I forget what style it was called, like queen something style, but it has like a rail that slides down so you can get your kid out easier.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently in the 80s and 90s, that style, killed some people. And so it was like a death trap.
Yeah.
And so I ended up just like drilling a couple holes through the wood and through some metal framework and locking that in. So we never brought it up and down, just so I would be allowed to use it. Well, it was very clear if I didn't do something to secure that,
you're not.
We would not. Crib. That would not be in there. Yeah. So we got a free crib that way, and then nice. Clothes are just and baby clothes they don't get worn out. The babies just lay there.
Yeah.
And they grow out of them so fast that
exactly.
It's not worth the money.
Now I will say the age group we're in right now is been more difficult. Because boys wear out pants and shorts like crazy, especially like the knee area.
Yeah,
it's insane. Yeah, so we've actually struggled finding lately secondhand clothing. So we've been hit every time we go into a Sam's Club. We end up buying like a pair or 2 of kids' pants, and within a couple months, knees have holes in them. It's super irritating. I'm gonna go back like those 80s, 90s style patches and just start like ironing or sewing patches.
There you go. Rib jeans are in. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm wearing some rib jeans right now. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we can resell them for a profit.
Dude, you kid, but I've seen like jeans with oil stains and grass stains go for like 200, $300. I'm like, you guys gotta be kidding me.
They
Just go
make them like
outside.
that on purpose now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw some sort of documentary or show on them. Like they show the factory in Thailand, and
Oh my
like
gosh.
they're just like destroying the jeans on purpose and then putting them out to sell.
I'm like, change the oil in your car, rub your hands on your pants, like, roll around in the grass, and then sell them for $200. You know what? I think I'm gonna start a business too. Just gonna go buy Walmart jeans and run around and roll around in the grass and change my oil.
Listen, if people are gonna pay, let them.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So your twins are 7.
Yeah.
I forgot if you said you had girls or boys.
2 boys. And so
sports, baseball, any of that stuff?
Not yet. We did a little mini sports camp with them a couple of years ago to kind of introduce them to a few things. But in Colorado, it was so hard to be able to get them involved in something because it's cold 6 to 7 months out of the year. And so, to do something like that, it's hard to keep something going. So we're really looking forward to that here now that we're in Florida. To be able to get that going. And when you have twins, that there's nothing to do but to compare them to each other. And so growing up, as they started growing up, we thought our oldest, 1 minute older, was going to be the more athletic one, and that the youngest was kind of more gravitating towards creative stuff, music, art, things like that. Well, that seems to be switching as they get older. Our youngest, Matthew, he just wants to play football all the time. He found a basketball in the garage. We didn't even have a basketball hoop, but he's out there dribbling and pretending to shoot and stuff like that. And so I can't wait to get them into stuff. I don't know where they're going to end up, but I'm looking forward to doing that. But we'll see how it goes. Our oldest, though, has the personality where if it doesn't come easy to him, he gives up. Just like that. And so, he's started kind of doing that recently with a few things. And I'm like, that's okay if you don't like it, if you don't want to do that, but just because you're not good at it from the start doesn't mean you should give up. So they're 2 totally different personalities to work with in the same household. That's a very interesting situation to be dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I would think as a dad, you treat that as if they weren't twins.
Yeah,
these are your talents that we foster. Like, we're not trying to have you guys turn out to be exactly the same. We're not trying to have you turn out like how dad was in school.
Right.
What you're good at is what you're good at, and what your personality is your personality. You don't have to act like your brother, and vice versa.
Yeah,
I think it's very important that they clearly know that expectation from mom and dad is you are 2 completely separate people.
Absolutely. That's vital. And in the beginning, we had them do a lot of things together in the same, because we didn't, you don't know as they start growing up what they're going to be into and what they're going to be good at, what they're going to like, and things like that. And so now we're kind of starting to, that picture is getting a little more clear, and so we're able to kind of make those decisions and decide, like, okay, they don't have to do everything together. Would I like them to try everything once together? Sure. I think that would be great. If they want to do soccer, okay, maybe they both try soccer, even if one of them doesn't want to the first time around. Then we switch the sport and do something else so that they can try basketball, and then we kind of land. That way they're exposed to a few things. Unfortunately with that, you're going to get that competitive spirit, and that can be a really negative thing for twins. I mean, I think it's good for brothers to be competitive, but with twins in the same age, you don't have that capability to be like, with your boys, you have 3 different ages, so you can say, well, you're not as good as your older brother at that yet, just because he's naturally bigger, he's been doing it longer, he's older, he's learned more things. I can't do that with my boys. And so
he's had 1 more minute to learn.
Exactly. That's it. And so there's something to that. You just have to be sensitive and mindful about it to make sure that, you're not forcing them to do something, but also letting them know, like, hey, you need to try your best. Even if you're not as good as him, that's okay. It doesn't matter. We're not comparing you to him. We're not proud of you less because you're not as good as him, or because he's maybe better at this one thing. We just want you to try it and find what you like, and that's okay. It doesn't matter there's going to be other kids on the team who are better than you and who are not as good as you. And so, in terms of that skill,
well, you're trying to instill those characteristics, work ethic, and putting the effort forth. And I would hope, commitment, you made a commitment to this team for the season. Yeah. You're not quitting early. You're going to finish out the season. You'll never have to play it again.
Right.
And whatever else. But yeah, I would agree with you 100%. It's probably be awkward if one of them's a star athlete and the other isn't quite as a star. Right. But hey, you're not identical people.
Right.
So there's other 7-year-olds in the world that were, born on the same time that are way better than your brother, who's really good. So you're entirely different people.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, that is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's tricky to navigate.
Luckily, one I don't have to deal with.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it gets tricky to navigate sometimes.
Yeah. My wife, she always wanted what you guys have: twin boys and then a girl. Which obviously now we're having a girl first instead of twin boys. So I'm like, well, I'm glad I don't have to deal with that, because I wouldn't know how, right? Like, obviously, you learn and you figure it out, but I think, like, just even looking at it from the outside in, I'm like, how do you separate that enough? Like, obviously, like, me and my brother, we're not even the same age, and yet we followed very similar life paths. We did same sports in high school. He went Navy, I went Army, but we followed very similar things. I would imagine, like, if we were twins, it probably would have been even more so. So kudos for you for seeing that and being able to separate that out and distinguish between them. I can't. I'm like, hey, what's up, boys? Because I don't know which one's which. They helped me out. Like,
so they're identical twins.
No, they're fraternal. Jonathan's just not very good at telling the difference.
Dude, they look identical. Like, there's
totally
tiny little differences. I think one time one of them was missing a tooth, so I was like, okay, cool, that's the one missing the tooth. I've got that figured out. And I had to, like, stare at them for a good, okay, your nose is a little bigger. But then when COVID happened and I didn't see them for 6 months, so I was like, nope, that's true. You guys all look the same again. Sorry, guys.
Well, that's fair. You haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah. So but whenever I get it right, I'm like, yes.
I mean, it's 50-50 odds. Don't be that proud of yourself.
Hey, man. Uncle Jonathan's got to get it right.
Yeah, so all y'all are in young stages. So there's no fun teen stories to talk about.
Not yet.
Not yet. We'll get. So I will say, like, the ages you're in, like this bonding time from this infancy to, 13. That's where I think a lot of fathers have dropped the ball in the past. Is they kind of sit there and say, I'll get more involved when the kids are older, because that's when they're more fun, and that's when they want to go camping and do stuff with dad, and they're easier to interact with because they're more adult-ish. And I think it's a critical mistake not to have that strong bond from the very beginning. So when you get to those difficult teenage years, you have the kind of relationship to where that girl can come to her dad and talk to him about awkward things. And same thing with boys.
I'm going into it almost aggressively because I grew up in a single parent home. So my mom did all the raising and stuff. And my dad was back in the picture around that age, around the 14 or 15 years. But at that point, I didn't want anything to do with him, because you weren't here, up until this point. You can't tell me what I can and can't do, or how I should do these things. So I'm concerned that I might be a little too aggressive on it. But I'm like, I want to be in it, in all of it, because I know what it's like to have.
It's keeping that mindset of, what do you want them to turn out to be? What do you want your daughter to be like when she's 20, 30, 40 years old? So we want them to be self-sufficient. So, we do have to foster an environment of some independence and freedom.
Yeah. And I don't want to smother her. And
you make your own choices, and there's consequences for those choices. At the same time, you live in my house and you're going to follow my rules.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I might be mad at you. That doesn't mean I don't love you.
Yeah.
There will never be a time that you cannot call me and say, Dad, I'm in trouble. Come help me. Yeah. And that I won't, no matter how pissed I am, no matter how stupid of a thing you did, that I won't come help you.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we won't be having a long discussion later. But
I might sit in the jail cell a couple hours just to really let you sit on it, and then come pick you up.
Okay, so now we're getting into a totally different discussion. But I do think it's a critical mistake for parents to bail out their kids too soon. I think kids need to sit there and for mom and dad to panic and say, we got to scramble to and divorced parents will do this a lot, and to see who can get them out faster. Or if one parent wants them to sit in there to kind of learn their lesson. It's freaking county jail. They're not in prison. They're not going to get stabbed in the yard. But they are going to get to sit there and think for a little bit. And to get them out too quick, I am a proponent of, if your kid's going to do something that stupid or get caught in that kind of situation for being in the, whether it's wrong place, wrong time, you were hanging with the wrong crowd. You don't need to be out at 2 a.m. in the morning. So whatever it is. I am so okay with sitting in the cell for a little bit.
My mom let me sit in county jail a couple of nights. She was like, I'm not gonna come pick you up till tomorrow. So I'm sleeping on the floor. And it worked. It worked. I didn't go to prison.
Ideally, you foster an environment where that's not even a situation.
Ideally,
that would be winning.
Unfortunately, you still can't control their actions and decisions and their friends and who they allow themselves to be influenced by. All you can do is teach them, and then hopefully it sinks in, and then when they're about to make that bad decision, oh wait, I remember dad saying something about this, and maybe they get that check in their spirit about it.
And you can certainly influence them heavily. I mean, you can certainly sit there and say, hey, I had my own father did this to me, and this is the time we weren't getting along. I think I'd even moved out by then. He pulled me aside and just said, the people you're hanging around with, I don't want that life for you. Do you see their life? I don't want you in prison. I don't want you getting busted for drugs. I don't want, I don't want any of, you to be a problem with the law. And even though we had a contentious relationship, and I don't think I was living there at the time, those words still hit home. And I played it off as a 17-year-old would, of don't talk to me about this crap. Whatever. Whatever I could say to get under his skin at the time. That's still something that kind of stuck. And while I still kind of hung out with those people a little bit, I did kind of back off a little bit and rethink my trajectory. And so I think that's certainly something that can be said, even if it's not going to be received well.
So let me ask you something. Obviously now, similar topic, talking about the influence on the kids and all that stuff. Now you guys are obviously traveling right now and doing the promo stuff. So are you guys doing, obviously COVID homeschool, but did you guys do homeschool before then, or did you start this year and you're like, hey, now we're going to do it? Or what was the case? And what do you think about it now?
We were already doing homeschool. Florida's got a huge homeschooling community. And so I know a lot of people, when they think homeschool, they think kind of a weird family. Socially awkward is a concern. And in Florida, especially, we lived in St. Augustine, Florida. It's a beach town. Florida in general has a very large homeschool community, and we just had a massive one. And I swear our kids were probably 10 times more social than any public school, any private school kid.
Nice.
I mean, 10 times more social. And because the homeschool groups are so big, so there wasn't a day they weren't going to the beach with 30 other boys that are homeschooled, or going on a nature trail with some dad, and they're learning about plants or insects. They I forget what that was, Wildlife Fridays or something like that. And they another homeschool dad did basketball once a week, where they would come in and they would run basketball practices in the middle of the day. And then all the other kids in the neighborhood come home and they tell us how, they're not allowed to speak during lunch anymore because the principal said no more. It got too loud. So now they don't even have PE anymore in that school, but now the kids can't even talk during lunch.
What?
I'm like, okay, so you have to sit there in class for 8 hours. We get homeschool done in 2.5 hours, and you're not allowed to talk during lunch, and you guys don't have PE anymore. So you get no physical exertion, you get no social interactions, very limited social interactions.
Those kids are going to be weird.
But we're the weird ones. So, and in Florida, you're not weird if you homeschool. Florida, it's a lot more common than I think a lot of other states.
It's something that more and more I think we're starting to lean towards, just because the way, I mean, obviously my values and our values as a family, I think are different than something I would find in public school and private schooling. Even then, I'm like, I don't know if I want to go down that route. And talking about that influence, right? I want to be the biggest influence in my child's life. I want her mom, my wife, to be the biggest influence, besides obviously our faith in the Lord. But I want to be they're teaching and spending time with them. So I think more and more we're probably leaning towards that homeschool. So I just wanted to get your
and you get involved in communities. Like there's homeschool groups, and that's what I'm saying. Like we were a member of so many of them that they were insanely social. and homeschool boys are, they're not at least the ones we hung out with. They're all, it's interesting. They're all very respectful. Like they've been raised well, but at the same time, they're wild. Like, I mean, these are kids that'll catch snakes and climb trees and jump over fences. And, God forbid we see an alligator in a pond. That poor alligator is going to be in for a scare.
Gator bite for lunch,
but at the same time, like you take them into a setting with adults and they'll be respectful. And, most of the time, obviously they're kids. There's times where, they don't do the right thing. But yeah, so there's a lot of bravery in those groups, a lot of confidence, a lot of, I don't know what your podcast is about, but a lot of qualities you would probably attribute to manliness. Certainly a sense of adventure and accomplishment and challenges and outdoor life, things like that.
Yeah. And just to tie into the homeschooling for a second before we jump to the manliness thing, my wife was actually homeschooled, and in her later years of homeschooling, there were some hybrid options that she took part in where she was primarily homeschooled, but then she would go in to a school, like a classroom setting for like one subject or something like that. And so there's, in those groups, there's big benefits.
So you can do that. You can do that in Florida as well. And you can still do their Bright Futures programs and things like that. And you can do all the extracurricular activities at public schools. So I had quite a few friends in high school that were homeschooled, and we played football together. We wrestled together. And it got to the point, I was not a great example for high school. I passed barely.
D's for diplomas.
Well, so I think at one point my junior year, I got pulled in. We had like a 5 a.m. wrestling practice, and while I was in the showers, I heard my name. Towns Russell report to the principal's office. It was like 30 minutes before school started, and like they sat down with a bunch of my teachers, the guidance counselor, my father was there, and they're like, so there's been like 140 days of school so far, and you've been absent for 132 of them. But you're here at 5 a.m. for practices, and you're here after school for practices. And you're always there for 7th period weightlifting. So that was a weird conversation. I would go to my homeschool friends' houses because they would maybe start homeschool around 11, finish by 1. So I would go over there. I had one friend. They were a farm family, and they had like a picture perfect life, like white picket fence, like 6 kids, and dad's a farmer, mom's a stay-at-home mom, like picture perfect. You go there, it's Leave It to Beaver, stacks of pancakes, bacon, sausage, eggs. And so me and my buddy Joe would go over there, and we just feast on breakfast. Then we go down to the beach with our friend, and then eventually we'd get to school.
Sounds like a dream, man.
It was actually a lot of fun, and we knew the school like. The trick back then, it's weird saying back then because I still feel very young, like it was recent, was as long as you were like had a good relationship with the teachers, you could get away with this stuff. So you had to like know the curriculum. You still had to like study on your own and be able to take the tests. But I would get 0s on attendance, 0s on homework. But I would show up for quizzes and I would show up for tests, and that pretty much got me through. Which made me excel in college. When I got to college, I was like a 3.8 student because they don't care about attendance. There is no homework. You have your midterm and your final. That's it. And so it prepared me well for college. But yeah, I think I barely got through.
Well, see, and even for me, I think I had the same experience, right? It was, at least from my experience in public school, it's memorizing. Learn it, memorization, pass the test, good to go. Which is, like you're right, college, huge. Kids wise, no, I wanted to retain, I wanted to learn, I wanted to enjoy learning something new. So and we'll see.
Well, I mean, I went to public school as well, and it's the whole entire
explains a lot.
The whole entire public school system is based on memorize it, pass the test so funding can go up for the school from the state. I mean, that's the whole model, you know. I mean, yes, kids are getting some education, but you know, is it everything's a business. There's a business side of everything. If the school gets more money, they can do more things, you know, and so on.
Well,
So
more than that, it's about moving a large amount of kids through the grades.
Yep.
And so your top excellers, even with all the different AP and ACE programs, your top excellers, unless they are very self-motivated, the parents are involved, you know, they won't get pushed as hard as they could be, and they won't excel as fast as they could. You know, the lower ones, everything kind of gets scaled down. So, you know, even your mid-tier and your upper tier education-wise students, you know, they're sitting around half the time because they can finish earlier. They already know the materials, or they're kind of daydreaming. And there's just so much wasted time and pointless crap going on. So, which you know, I'm not proposing any solution for that. I don't have one. You know, our solution for our family was to we went the private school route, and then we didn't even like that so much. So we started homeschooling. And so this all circles back, I guess. So we were already homeschooling, which made the decision to jump out and tour a lot easier, because we didn't have to make that adjustment as well.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, how do you like that for reconnecting the circle?
It's good, man. Good loop. Yeah, I don't know where we're going with this, but eventually we'll get to our destination, and then we made it right back, and I was like, that's good. It's good. You've been doing this for a while.
So the podcast, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mind if I take this one, Thomas?
Go for it.
I think for us, honestly, when we were like, hey, let's put a podcast together, and we could have easily put on a camera, get a couple microphones, and just talk as guys and have fun, and that would have been well enough for us. But we figured, hey, we're going to be putting content out. Let's provide something of use for somebody, something that's going to help somebody. So we put our heads together, and we came to the conclusion that, from our point of view, from our perspective, men, fathers, husbands, dads, brothers, men in general are lacking. And you can go as far as, you know, there's a war on boys, and everybody's telling men that it's bad to be masculine, and you could go that far under. You could say, just in general, even you don't have to go that off base, and to see that we've lost what it means to be a boy, to be a man. So we wanted to speak into that and say, hey, here's what we've learned. We're obviously not perfect men. We don't know everything, but here's what we learned in our 30 plus years of life, 60 plus years together. Me being in the military, Thomas being in business, both of us being in religion and fatherhood roles, husband roles, as friends, brothers, men. What can we share? What can we provide to young men that are coming up, and maybe to young men that's in the same position that I was in, that grew up without a dad, so doesn't really have that voice of, hey son, you need to be respectful. You need to also stand up for what you believe in, all that stuff. Like, maybe they don't have that, or maybe it's a single mom raising boys, and she's like, I don't know what to teach them because I'm a mom. Like, I can do the job, but there's things that a dad has to speak into, and that a man has to speak into. So that's kind of what gave birth to this idea. We're like, cool, let's share what we know and learn through the process, and hopefully we make better men. We make better men for the upcoming generation. I'm of the opinion that a lot of the problems we see in our country, in the world, from racial problems, and whatever you want to say, like, I really truly believe that a lot of that stems from a lack of good men. So we decided to let's speak into that, and hopefully we make a difference, make an impact, and change somebody's life.
Yeah, and we went the route of, when we were really looking into it, manliness was the key for us. We didn't really know how to get there, and then we kind of stumbled across, we looked up the definition, and we stumbled across the definition of it, and I think the definition of manly is to be brave and strong, and that's basically it. End of definition. And so we were like, that's where redefining came in. Is we were like, there's more qualities and characteristics for a man to be manly, in our opinion, that we're missing. And so that's kind of where we honed in and decided that, we need to redefine this term, because those qualities, those characteristics are missing from a lot of men in society today. And like Jonathon said, we're not perfect in any of those.
Just ask our wives and they'll tell you.
Yeah, if we can get better and people will just join us for the ride, then we're trying to make ourselves better. And if people want to join for the ride and they can get something out of it too, then that's what we're trying to get done.
Yeah.
So I guess what's the company line? What's the definition, the new definition of manliness?
So I've actually got that pulled up. Let me just put on my old man reading glasses because I can't see.
I just got to memorize that.
Dude, I know it's a long one, and I wrote it out myself too. But I was like, I got to get it. And we kind of shifted away from manliness to be manly is to be a good man, right? And we said, to be manly is defined as being brave and strong. But to us, to be manly is to be a good man. To be a good man requires balance within ourselves and values that push us to go further and to go and be better. A good man is one who is brave, who can stand against the fears and dangers in life and say, I will not be moved. I will not be shaken. A good man is one who is loyal to more than just himself, who is honest with others, and who has the integrity to do the right thing when no one is looking. A good man treats himself and others with the respect that every person deserves and has compassion for those who are suffering. A good man has the strength to be self-disciplined. He knows when to stop and think before acting or speaking, and he has the wisdom to live not out of impulse, but out of structure. A good man is strong enough to protect himself and those he cares about, but also strong enough to face emotional distress, as well as offer support to those who need it. A good man is one who fulfills all of these values to their fullest extent. Rather, is not one who fulfills all of these to the fullest extent. Rather, one who strives every day to be better today than he was yesterday. So that's kind of our thing, right? Be better today than you were yesterday.
Well, I see why you haven't memorized it.
Yeah. It got long. I mean, we should probably compress that down, but I was like, there's so much that we wanted to touch on. So
yeah,
no, it's good.
We came out of it with 9 kind of core values of manliness: bravery, compassion, loyalty, strength, honesty, integrity, respect, wisdom, and self-discipline. Yeah. And so we're kind of hitting on each of those values in different episodes of the podcast, as well as talking about other topics, just, in the world, things that are happening and how being manly kind of ties into, real life things. But we're really diving in deep to each one of those values and why we think it's a necessary part of manliness.
Yeah.
So I don't have that written down. So I agree with all of it. I think it's lacking a couple things, and more where I see where you guys are going with it, but that's almost a great answer for when someone says "man up," what does that mean? And almost your definition fits it perfectly. Because it usually has a lot to do with honor and respect and integrity. Not so much, sexual conquest or do you even have man parts? So the only thing I would think would be lacking out of that was the direction of some of the things that feed a man's soul, that sense of adventure, that need to overcome challenges, accomplishment, things like those. That's the only angle I didn't see in there, unless I'm wrong.
Well, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think man needs conquest. A man needs something to strive for. Who was it? Jordan Peterson talks about how responsibility is what gives young men purpose, value, having something to be responsible for, having a weight to carry. I think for us, we kind of put that under bravery and self-discipline. You have to be brave to take on the conquest. You have to have the bravery to step out of your comfort zone, have the bravery to take on the weight that you don't know if you can handle it or not until you take it on. And then you have the self-discipline to know, okay, I need to fix myself, to work on myself, to better myself. So we kind of tied it into those two things instead of making it its own separate thing.
Yeah. Because I just feel like, when we do talk about what men don't do anymore, and it's obviously some men or what's gotten lost a little bit is some of that, just that camping, that hunting, fishing, getting outdoors, and because it kind of hits those things.
Right.
I will say, like, for me, business hit those things. And so, like, now I'm craving those things, even though we're outside all the time. But like I want to get a piece of iron ore and smelt it down and make a knife. Like that just sounds really cool, and like that would feed me internally.
When I think it just comes back down to that having a responsibility, having a purpose, having something to strive for, right? And yeah, you're right. Hiking, hunting, like that. It's you versus nature. Like that's a great example. But like for me, woodworking, like taking a piece of wood and shaping it, molding it, and saying this is I'm gonna create something that's gonna fit my purposes, my needs. There's out of nothing, I'm gonna create something. I think starting a business, right? The same thing. Like I'm gonna venture my capital. I'm gonna put my name out there. I'm going to build something from the ground up. And I think those are areas where a lot of times we're distracted. Like, well, we're not hunter gatherers anymore. So we don't have to go out and hunt. We don't have to go out and provide. So we've lost that. And yet there's so many different areas that we can still use that and still apply that as men. And I think sometimes we just don't see it all. I think we've narrowed it down.
Accomplishment makes us feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to kind of, we were kind of laughing when you said that outdoor thing is missing, because Jonathan's definitely more of the outdoor guy. I not so much. I'm not a camper. I'm not a fan of outdoor stuff. I'm more of a glamper if I'm gonna go. Like give me some air conditioning, a bed to sleep in. I'll be good to go. But
there's nothing wrong with it. That's a good start.
Hey, and so that's kind of where we wanted to come at this from, is that you can come from any different walk of life. You can be any personality, and you can still have these values through the life that you're walking through, the things that you enjoy. I mean, like Jonathan just said, from woodworking to starting a business, like Jonathan makes something out of nothing with wood. I can make something out of nothing with someone's personal finances. And that's two totally different ends of the spectrum. But, you're working through some of these same values to make that happen. You don't have to be that outdoorsy guy, and you don't have to be that you mentioned Leave It to Beaver earlier. I can't remember what the dad's name was in that show, but
Clive, no, Walter,
maybe
Mr. Beaver.
There you go. Yeah, but you don't also have to be that Mr. Beaver who is just going to work the 9 to 5, just being the breadwinner. That's it. I mean, or you can be, and you can still kind of fulfill these, but you can kind of hit these from any different area that you're at, and that's kind of where we wanted to come from.
Yeah,
I know you're trying to hit an important point, but I think it's Clyde or Clive. Ward. It's Ward.
Yeah, it's Ward.
Smart.
Good job. Glad you
Mr. Beaver was Ward.
Yes. Ward Beaver. Guys, you should have known that.
Good, dude, great memory. I can't believe I need to eat more fish oil apparently, because I couldn't remember.
So do you have any theories or any studies into what is causing the lack of that manliness?
Yeah, so obviously we have some theories from relationships we've had with other young men in our lives, so especially me as a pastor. I have a lot of other young men that I speak into and pour into, and kind of see their struggle, and whether they're in high school or college, or even some of them are out in the workforce already. And a lot of them, from the conversations I've had, have said it's bad to be just a breadwinner, and then you can't open a door for the girl anymore, or it's rude to call her first, or just all these things that they feel like I can't be what I naturally want to be. So I saw that, and I just
are you seeing people are really getting called out on chivalry type things? Yeah,
I know a couple guys that have. That I know one guy specifically went out on a date, and he opened up the door for a girl, and she was like, "What are you doing? Like I can open my own door." Never mind, she ended up canceling the date. I'm like, wow, that's nuts. Like
what age group is that?
He's 21. 19 to 21, somewhere like at freshman college. And
so she canceled the date because he opened the door for her?
Yeah. Now, granted, we're in Denver, Colorado, Boulder. Like some of that might have to do with it as well. Yeah. And who knows? Different cultures, different places. And I never dealt with that personally. Like I've come from, like I said, a father's home, but my mom always encouraged me to be chivalrous, to be hardworking, to do all that stuff. And then obviously when I was in the military, it was very much a man's game, coming out into leadership. So I've never really dealt with that personally, but I've seen it in other young men's lives.
Well, sure, but it's strange. I just don't understand the thought process behind it. Like, of course you can get your own door. I know that, but like, you're a strong person. my wife can get her own door.
Yeah.
I just think so highly of you. I wanted to do this nice thing for you. This was kindness. This wasn't disrespect. This wasn't me thinking you're inferior. This is me being insanely respectful and kindful, that I went out of my way to show you some sort of appreciation.
Yeah. Well, and obviously that makes sense to us, because we all probably think the same way of our wives, and very highly of our wives. Like, man, I want to lay down the red carpet for you, just because I respect you that much. But I think, especially now, we've gotten to a point where there's a big push for being equal and not having equality. And I think there's difference. I think we're equal in value. I don't think we're equal in roles. I don't think we're equal in responsibilities. I think there's things that shift, and we're starting to see that a little bit more, especially on the younger generation. So, I saw that, and we wanted to speak into it and kind of help these guys say, like, no, it's good. It's good to want to fight. It's good to be a little aggressive. Like, you're a man. Don't fight for any stupid reason, but be willing to defend yourself. Be willing to defend your family. Be willing to stand up for your beliefs. Be willing to say, no, I'm right. Like, I have this core belief in me, and I'm not going to change it because you disagree with it.
So I'm going back to, I'm kind of floored by that chivalry thing.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know the cause. Like, I know that's the effect, but what is, and I don't know how many people this has happened to, or if this is a trend that's growing.
Yeah.
But like, what are girls being taught, or what are guys being taught, or whatever, or what is happening that makes them feel like somebody opening a door for you is I'm assuming disrespectful, like you're not treating me well,
like I can't do that myself or something. And honestly, I don't have the answer for that. I think that's something that we're learning and diving into. I have my theories. Like, I think we've seen a growth of people growing up in fatherless homes over the last 20 years. And I think that might have something to do with it, where girls they're not being raised by their fathers, or at least, the last 20 plus years they weren't. So they don't have a healthy relationship with men, or, we've seen a rise in divorces. So there might be some of that where maybe they're living with mom more. So
it almost seems like it's a lack of self-esteem or a lack of confidence that would bother you.
Yeah, that could very well be the case as well. But then, when it affects, when that lack of self-esteem affects, other relationships, and it spreads, I think that's when you have a problem. And that's what we're trying to do. Like, hey, nip that in the bud. Be confident in who you are. Be confident in what you know and what you value, and stand up for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I would tell that 21-year-old boy. You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, you need to be able to sit there and explain to her, this isn't me disrespecting you. This is me trying to be insanely nice to you. Otherwise, you drive and pay for it.
Open my door.
So turn this around.
Yeah.
I'm going to redefine it.
So I've heard, I haven't studied it too deep, but I've definitely heard some different theories. The shift in career path for men from going to farming to, getting into the 1950s, 60s, 70s, where a lot of dads, the economy shifted to more of a sales, less factory work, less farm work, more sales. And so a lot of dads were traveling more. They were away from the home more. So mom has more influence on the upbringing of the children. Dad has less influence. A lot of talk about, I just lost my train of thought, because I know some of it went back to farming as well, but that whole culture moving into cities, where the school systems were having more of an effect on raising children, going into that same era and the teaching field being predominantly women, heavy in women teachers. So now we have moms being a heavy influence at home, dad's not being there. So even when the kids are out of home, now it's mostly female teachers guiding. And so it's, and women and men are always going to disagree on certain things. And we are two different styles. Women, so that's a dangerous discussion. But to where it's a much more feminine upbringing of those traditional values, where they kind of, a lot of girls just don't understand what really feeds men at the heart. They don't understand why we pick up sticks and hit trees. They don't understand why we pick up rocks and throw them at things.
Right.
it's weird to them.
Yeah.
And so, that was some of the influence of teachers, of so many kids being raised so much time into the school system that's predominantly female. The homes are becoming predominantly female. And so the male influence and masculinity was being filtered out that way. There's a couple other theories I've heard. I just can't think of them off the top of my head right now.
I have a theory that I'm working on, and I'd like to get some insight into and figure it out. It kind of ties back to what we talked a little bit earlier about men wanting conquest, men wanting achievement, men wanting a challenge. And I'm thinking through the generations. We've had past generations. You had World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, like all these big conflicts. And then our generation, while we had, the war on terror, it was different. It wasn't for a big, the world is uniting against one common enemy. There was very much disagreements on we should be there, we shouldn't be there, we're after the wrong people. So there was a lack of that. And I feel like our generation specifically, millennials and down haven't had a big conquest event in their life. Like we haven't had a big something, not saying that, we all need a big war, but I feel like previous generations had something to unite them, something to strive for, something greater than themselves to reach and to fight for. And we haven't had that. So I wonder if, maybe there's some of that there. And again, it's just a theory I'm working through, but.
Well, World War II was probably the last of that. Korea War, I don't think was that way. Vietnam certainly was. Vietnam was Vietnam was probably really the downfall of military uniting the country, where it insanely divided the country. Those soldiers were coming home and getting spit on. They were really trashed. And a lot of them that went over there didn't even want to go over there. It was the draft. Whereas World War II, World War I, you're volunteering, and you're disappointed when you don't get to go. We had 9/11. That certainly unified the country. Everyone came together on that. But the war is certainly different now. It's not lining up and taking out a clear enemy. It's almost like what America was when America was fighting the revolution of like, you got these pockets of people in the woods that just jump out and shoot and then run away. So, they're within us. And so we're fighting a much different war than we have in the past. And that's the way it's going to be probably forever.
Till AI takes over and that's a whole other.
Until it's all robots fighting. We'll all be dead by then. I agree. There's nothing unifying. I think a lot of that is what great societies and world-leading civilizations, it just happens to them. They get super complacent. They focus on the wrong things. They start caring so much about fashion and entertainment, sports, finances, things that genuinely don't matter. And they get succumb to it, and they just turn a blind eye to everything else. And that's how great. That's how. I am certainly not a history professor by any means, but I know the basic stuff to know. That's how all the superpowers have fallen. They start bickering about stupid things, and they take their eye off the ball, and then someone else takes over.
I don't know.
I don't know how to tie that into parenting, but certainly, I guess all kids haven't grown up. If you're 18 right now, you were born in 2003. So that's pre 9/11 sentiment.
Gen Z, Gen X, all these guys, they've grown up without that. So
they've got COVID.
And even that's not a great uniter either.
That's the best they've got right now.
That's a great divider, if anything.
That's been sad. Laws. Basically an attack on the family. So laws have changed where they really start. A couple things, culture, shifts. I don't know them very greatly, but I know there have been laws that have passed that really took dads out of it, especially black dads, out of the home. And certainly political policies that have encouraged breaking up of families, that have financially incentivized single households. financially incentivize having kids out of wedlock.
Yeah.
And so, those things all just continue to contribute. So on top of the economy shifting and dads being out of the house, moms raising, on top of kids going through the school system that's predominantly female, this is where we're losing a lot of our masculinity.
Yeah.
And then we've got some political policies and laws going back decades, a long time ago, and probably still continuing. I just don't know them well enough. That takes dads out of houses, puts them in jail, and incentivizes families to break up.
Yeah.
So those are my theories, and I'm sticking with that I've heard over some point, but I haven't dug super deep into them.
Yeah. Well, again, I think there's obviously some basis to that. Obviously, I'm a result of some of that. My father wasn't in prison or anything, but definitely like growing up my mom was a big influence, and she was the main influence for 13, 15 years ish. So I definitely had a lot of men questions getting to the age. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't even know, even the basic function of a man. I don't even know how to, what is a husband supposed to do? It's just, I'm just supposed to work and that's it.
Was there an uncle or grandfather or neighbor that filled that role?
No, it was my grandma. It was my mom and my grandma. And I don't think I really had it. I don't think I had a male influence that really impacted me up until high school. And I had a band teacher, which was funny because he did band and PE, because he would run the marching band and stuff. So it was a smaller school, but he was kind of really big influence into that. And speaking to wanting to be physically active and get out of the house and explore new things and just the role of a man. And I think that obviously kind of set me up. And then going into the military, that had a big influence on my life there as well. So now it's just a matter of okay, cool. Who do I know that was in the same situation, and where can I be that influence? So
military will do that. I mean, military gives you that physical challenges, mental challenges, structure, clear pecking order. You follow orders, you also give orders. An expectation for how things are done. And how that provides continuity in life. But I'm sure you could.
Discipline, structure. I mean, all of that. I think, for me, especially at that age, 18 to 24, I think is when I got out. I think that age was very formative. And then, and there's some stuff that probably was, I don't want to use the word toxic, but there were some things that I brought out that didn't really translate well to the civilian life, to work life, to life separated. But I learned and grew out of that as well. And now,
when you get into the business world, cursing and making fun of their mother and how stupid they are and every physical thing that's wrong with them is really not the best motivational tool in the civilian world.
My best friends are some of the weirdest
in a parenting world.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to. I've learned to curb that. It's not good on a church stage either. So that helps.
So because I actually I like a lot of military things being brought into the family. Structure, discipline, the pecking order, continuity in the day, expectations that are clear and set out. But there is an extreme, and I'm sure some military families do that to where they're raising their family like they are the drill sergeant, and that is you don't raise children by crushing them all the time. There needs to be freedom in it because they're kids. Now, when you're dealing with an 18-year-old that's wild and free, you can do this because you're also going to give them some of that freedom and independence as they earn it. But just to constantly crush and destroy a child is not going to work out well.
Good to know.
Well, you already knew that.
Yeah, I think going back to something you said about the laws kind of being formatted in a way to kind of break up families. I mean, just look at divorced families in general. Obviously there's two ends of the spectrum. One end where, just didn't work out. Parents just worked really well together to still continue to raise the kid. And the other end of the spectrum where it's just a complete disaster. But I think a large majority that kind of funneled down the middle is, if you just look at it from a court perspective, if nothing's really majorly wrong with either side, no one's, clearly addicted to crack on either side, that I think naturally the courts are just going to favor the women.
Hold on a second. I got right after clearly addicted to crack on either side. You really broke up. If that's not government censorship, I don't know what
is. So, you know, if there's neither parent is, you know, clearly, you know, addicted to crack or anything majorly wrong on one side, I think the court naturally is going to favor the woman and the mom in that scenario.
Oh.
And so that's where the child support comes in, and just what you were talking about, it makes it financially impactful and beneficial for the mom to you know, raise the kids and be the one who collects the child support. And it really ends up hurting the dad. I've seen multiple scenarios of this where the dad is just out there, you know, working his hands to the bone just to have, you know, a ton of his paycheck taken away to be sent to the mom to do who knows what with the money. Now, any dad in their right mind is going to say, okay, as long as that's going to them to help the kids, fine. That's all that matters. But if, you know, mom isn't actually doing that, that creates
there are many states to where the laws regarding custody crush dad.
And Colorado's one of
those. So is Florida, so is Texas. I think most of the states are in that way. To where custody is barely, influence is minimal. You know, really they just look at dad for the paycheck, and it heavily favors mom. Not that mom's not important. You know, it's a sad situation either way. And that's what we tell dads that are divorced, like, your time's already cut in half, like minimum, you're already cut in half. So the ability to do everything possible, which is going to mean humbling yourself, to spend every possible second with your kid. And it's going to be tempting because you have all this new freedom to kind of live, you know, sometimes live the single life and sometimes live the father life. You know, I've said it quite a few times to where you almost need to humble yourself and be so kind to mom that you're like the default babysitter. That, you know, let her live the single life and you become the babysitter, so you get even more time, more influence with your kids. And I know there's a ton of contentious divorces. Very few of them are tolerable, and some of them that start nice don't finish nice.
Well, I think you can
it gets disgusting.
I think you can circle that right back to the manliness. You know, boys growing up in divorced homes with the single moms. Now, there are obviously certain scenarios where mom's just doing their best. Dad dies, something happens. You know, dad leaves the picture. You know, just completely abandons him. There are certain extremes, but in a situation like that where dad wants to be around, that's kind of, I think, what we're trying to pitch with the manliness. Like, you have to, if we can catch any of these kids that have kind of come up in that, you know, setting where it's not necessarily their fault, but they haven't had that influence or haven't been allowed that influence. If we can catch some of them early, and, you know, our whole goal is, like Jonathon said, be better today than we were yesterday. But if we can do something today that impacts, you know, say one thing that impacts one man's life, and that ripple effect, we don't know how far that's going to go.
Sure.
So if the ripple effect goes, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to be the splash in the water that sets off the ripple effect, and, you know, they can change it. They can go change the world. You know.
Well, what you said about dads wanting to be there, like dad making that effort to try to make sure he's at every recital, make sure he's at every practice, even the ones that he's not scheduled for, to never saying no, to not being given outs by mom of, hey, you don't have to take her this weekend. She's got a birthday party with a friend anyway. Don't worry about it. And to, you know, to be involved as much as humanly possible, that's going to be recognized by the kid. Long term, maybe not immediately. 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds aren't going to even notice that. But long term, when it matters, they are going to look back one day and say, you know, my dad had every other weekend or every weekend, and we really didn't do that. You know, I was allowed just to go to my friend's house, and when that's a 16-year-old girl or boy, you know, trying to figure out who they are in the world, those things are going to matter. And I've heard plenty of stories about dads getting, you know, quote unquote tricked, where mom gave them those kind of outs to where you don't need to take him this time. Don't worry about it. I know you need to pick up some overtime, or, you know, she's got a friend's birthday party anyway. And, you know, I think it's more important for that dad to forget work.
Yeah.
You forget I'll take you to the birthday party, or you know what, spending time with me is more important than the birth party. You don't like it now, but you will in 10 years.
Yeah.
So
well, I think something super cool that we've noticed on the Redefining Manliness podcast is on the opposite end of that spectrum, that we've seen, there's like 30 to 40% of our audience is female. It's moms and wives saying like, hey, I need my son to learn this, whether that's not in the picture, or maybe dad's not at the place they want him to be. They're like, hey, here's some stuff that I think would be great for you to pass on to your kids, which was surprising. Yeah, I need my husband to step up and learn this stuff too, which was super surprising for us, because we're like, it's geared towards men, and yet we had a lot of women come in and that are watching and tuning in and stuff, and so that was super cool.
We've got 8%, I think 8 or 9% female followers. And every once in a while they jump into a conversation and you're just like, you shouldn't be in this conversation. And they'll get jumped on too in the comment feed. Like, obviously, obviously you don't have the same thought process. I do have a question for you, for both of you, because I'm interested in your opinion of this. I'm of the theory that you shouldn't air your spouse's dirty laundry out. And my wife has never done that with me. She talks to her friends, she'll talk about things I don't do great. I've never told a friend anything that I don't like about my spouse. Like, I don't trash talk her ever. I just don't think. No. I don't think it's anybody's business, and I want her to be held in a very positive light. That's how I think it should be.
I think you're 100% right.
But so here's her argument, because we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, is she doesn't think you should hide the lack of that being spoken is causing problems down the line for other people. Like, they're not speaking out about it. They think everyone's relationships, perfect or just fine, and really there's struggle behind there that's not being talked about, and they don't realize that they're not alone in these things, that the problems they're having in their relationship, other people are having too. Even though, like, our relationship's great, like 99% perfect, we have these 1% of things that are very difficult in our life. And that, so even Ken and Barbie, the perfect couple, are not
the perfect couple
are not perfect. They fight too.
Well, and I think it's a double-sided coin, right? It's two sides of the same coin. On the one hand, you don't want to go off complaining to your boys about your wife, whatever, not doing something right, or you don't want your wife going and telling her girls what terrible father you are, what terrible husband. Like, I'm a big believer on you reprimand in private, you praise in public. Like, obviously reprimand my wife, but like, just in leadership in general. Like, if I'm gonna coach you and reprimand you, I'm doing that in private, because that's nobody else's business, and I'm gonna praise you in public because I want people to see you being praised and being lifted up. Now, I also believe that community is super important. You need to have other friends, other couples that you're walking in life with, that you're sharing life with, that are as close as family can get, right? Whether they're friends or they are family, and those are the people that you can rely on, and they can hold you accountable. You hold them accountable, and you have that relationship. But again, that's not with everybody. That's with special people, certain people that you trust in your life. Like, I can go to Thomas and say, "Hey, man, I'm going through something. My wife and I are going through something." He can come to me because we have that relationship. I'm not, I just met you. I'm not going to go to you with that. Like, hey, here's my wife's doing it. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I think having a good balance on who you share with, who you don't share with, and at the end of the day, always praise in public, reprimand in private, work on some of that stuff, and not everything has to be brought out. So I do think that there's a fine tension, but I think they can coexist.
Yeah, I think the setting is vitally important to that scenario. Like Jonathan said, that's a prime example. If we both have a relationship where he could come to me and ask for advice, or vice versa, and I'm inviting him in. But for me to go to him and be like, "Man, I've got to tell you what Julie just did," like, and just kind of mouth off, that's disrespectful to her. That's, but if I'm like, "Hey, here's the scenario. I know I did something wrong. I feel like she did something wrong. What do you think?" Like, the tone and the way you're coming about it, I think, can be very different. You can come at it disrespectful, or you can come out of it trying to learn and grow.
So there's a difference between seeking counsel and advice and just bitching.
Just whining. Yeah. Was it? I think Teddy Roosevelt said, bringing forth problems without solutions is just whining, and that's just all it is. And again, I think it's my responsibility as a friend. Like, if Thomas comes, like, I'm his friend and I'm his wife's friend. It's like we're all friends, and you know, you can't believe what my wife is. I'm like, I'm not. We're not. Don't talk to me about that. Don't come complain to me about your wife. Like, if you have a problem, let's talk about that. If you just want to complain and moan, do that. Do that on your own time, man. I'm too busy to be listening to that right now, anyway. So,
what's the most? Have there been any complicated situations that you guys have come across? And don't name names or anything. Were you glad you weren't in that situation on a spousal level? That would be worth talking about right now. I feel like in churches, there's always a good drama story.
Yeah, there's always something. But I mean, I think that that's a perfect example, because there should be drama. There should be conflict, because it's not a place for perfect people. It's a place where people can come in.
There's a reason. There's a reason people are in church.
Yeah, they need the help. They need the counsel. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with church not being a place for saints. Let me see. Let me think of a good one.
So when I started to learn what happens like behind the scenes of churches, it messed me up a little bit. Like, I didn't realize there was because even my own church, like, there's stupidity and drama going on in those. They're not called board meetings, but they're basically board meetings. Like, well, I've heard some of the things that go on in there. I'm just like, my jaw drops. I'm like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
That I mean, I think that happens in any environment, right? Any environment you put people in it, and you're gonna have people clashing, people disagreeing.
Not in our church.
Yeah, no. Good save.
So let me throw this scenario to you. So you have a friend. You find out his wife has been having an affair. Do you tell your friend?
I think you talk to the wife first. Say, listen, I found this out. I know it's true because I have proof. I have witnesses, whatever the case may be. You need to come clean. Like, you need to repent with the Lord and get all that back. But you need to talk to your husband. You need to tell him what happened, what's going on. And if you don't, I will. But I think you have to give the spouse the option first. Like, it's not going to help him. Hey, man, I just found out your wife has been sleeping around with some other dude. Like that. First of all, I was like, there's going to be doubt. Like, no way, that's not true. There's going to be questioning. There's friction in the relationship. Like, it's not my place. It's my place to say, you need to tell him. You need to be honest with him. You've got 48 hours, or else then I'm going to.
Yeah.
Tell him or else.
Yeah. So
yeah, I've actually heard, not from an affair perspective, but I've heard of, since we both worked in the church world, I heard that there was another church that if the husband or one of the spouses that worked there was getting in trouble or was going to get laid off or was getting a corrective action plan, they would be forced to have their spouse sign the document and bring it back to force them to talk about it, so that they would know, because they had laid too many people off, where then the husband or the wife would come storming into the office like, what? I didn't know anything about this. Why did my, spouse get fired? What's the deal? So they kind of changed that mindset, kind of along the lines of what Jonathan's saying. Like, you've got the opportunity to go talk. And if you don't, this is happening anyway. But you need to go home and sign this, so they're involved along the way, kind of forcing that communication. And when you went back to the topic earlier of have we come across anything like that, I've come across communication issues where spouses are just not communicating, and that's what's really the root cause. They won't say how they feel in a certain situation. They're both just,
I feel like that's 99.9% of marital conflict is there is something wrong in the communication.
Sure. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is when there is no communication, when they're just not willing to share, obviously my wife and I argue because we're miscommunicating. We're having a problem. We're having a communication issue.
I said something the wrong way, or
I did something wrong most of the time, but we all know that. But I'm saying when neither of them are willing to communicate, and there's things being hidden over here, and there's feelings that are just being bottled up over here, and there's just no communication, and it's just totally surface.
Recipe for disaster.
Those are major issues.
So I already know how Thomas feels, and I know how Jonathan's going to say too, but I still want to throw the scenario out there. So when we first got married, we were teenagers. we had this neighbor family, much older. They were like 20, 30 years older than us. The husband was talking to me one day saying, hey, just like you're getting married, just so you know, something I do that you need to do, don't tell your wife about it. You open up a separate account for a different bank and just slide some money over there every once in a while so you can build it up just in case. And
just in case.
So I went back and told my wife, or not my wife, I guess it would have been my fiance at the time, or girlfriend, whatever it was. I told her about it. I'm like, you won't believe what he just told me. And she's like, are you serious? Because his wife just told me the same thing about 3 weeks ago. Of course, I'm like, but you didn't tell me. I told you.
Oh, did she have a separate account? Did you ask her about it?
No. I remember when gosh, one of those weird moments. Sometimes you just like you have these standalone moments that stand out in your youth. Yeah. One of them was I was like watching TV at like 11 o'clock at night. My dad came in. I was like 9 or 10 maybe. And my stepmom and sister were gone. Like they'd gone out to Florida on vacation or something, some conference. And just like a midnight run, he's like, hey, you want to go to the store and get candy? Like, I've been asking for candy for my entire life at the checkout. I've always been told no. Yeah, let's go. And we went down to the CVS store, some drugstore like 10 minutes away, and just got like 3 or 4 big bags of like candy. And he told me then, he's like, don't tell my stepmom at the time, don't tell her about this. This is coming out of my secret account. It was only like what, $15 worth of candy or something like that. And we went back and gorged. It was like a midnight candy run. Just never happened again. Just one of those things that stands out.
That's awesome.
But again, it was a secret cash account. They also divorced a few years later.
There you go. I was going to say
communication and finances, right? Communication and finances are like the 2 top reasons for divorce. So
transparency.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, we can get into the whole finance thing. Like my wife.
So your fans are cool. So, what is your opinion on having secret accounts?
No, don't have secret accounts.
No,
you can have separate accounts, but you should know about them. Like, so my wife and I have a joint account where both our paychecks come in there, all of our bills are paid up from there. But then we have separate accounts, which we call, our spending accounts. And, every month we'll split whatever, $500, $200, whatever we have left over. Like, hey, here's, that's your spending money, my spending money. Mm-hmm. She saves it. She'll save it for months. And then, out of nowhere, she'll have $1,000 to spend on herself or whatever she wants. And I spend mine, in the weekend, and I never have more than, $200 in my pocket. But we know about it. We tell each other about it.
So all your family stuff is paid out of one. You're not running the house split. You're not covering the mortgage. She's not doing groceries, that kind of stuff.
No, it's all together. Because I've always hated to be in a position where it's like, I'm paying for the house, you're paying for groceries. This is my house. You're just living here. Like I don't want it to be that.
There's a lot of married couples that do that, and I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, they do it, and for some of them it works for them. It's weird.
Yeah.
I was talking. I think my sister does this. She was telling me how they do it. And like she does one thing and he covers the other things. I was like,
feels like roommates to me.
Well, no, I was like, Hannah, like his piece is like $70 a month. Yours is like $600. Like, have you not figured out this isn't fair?
Yeah, then there's that. And I think for a lot of people, money can be such a finicky thing, right? Because people don't talk about it, or we're not open about it, or whatever the case may be. Like, man, we've been in different positions. We've had, we've been times in life we've had a good amount of money. We've been times in life where we've had no money. There's been times where my wife has made more than I have. I've made more than her. Like, and we've always talked about it. We've always been open about it. We've always just, here it is. This is ours. It's worked so far.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah. Thomas, we already know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Don't have a secret account. Separate accounts is also a bad idea because, I mean, from what you just said, that example you gave about your sister, that's a perfect example. And take it a step farther and say the person who's supposed to be paying for the house suddenly decides, you know what? I think I'd like to take up gambling. And all of a sudden you're getting evicted and you didn't know because you thought they were paying the house payment or the rent or whatever. It's just, I mean, there's no clarity or transparency, with separation. Dude. I mean, Jonathon, what you guys are doing is different. That's your like money that you guys have decided. This is our personal money. I'm going to spend it how I want. You're going to spend it how you want.
Yeah, that's spending cash.
Yeah, that's spending cash. That's fine. But totally separate, dividing it up like roommates, that's bad.
Dude, I mean, that's spot on. That was, we actually went through that exact scenario you said, 7-8 years ago. We were freshly married. moves to a place. I was in charge of all the finances. That was my job to pay the rent, to do all that stuff. And we lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, next door to a casino. I'm like, oh, you know what? I have $600 for rent, but I could go double it. And I didn't. And it was a whole thing. Like,
did you triple it?
I wish that would have been fantastic. No, what do you call when you I zeroed it? I lost all of it. And then some. Yeah.
What was the game?
Blackjack. Yeah. And because I had walked in, I think the week before with $20 and walked out with like 500. So I was like, easy. If I can do that with 20, imagine what I could do with 600.
So you walked in with 600. What was that? How much per hand?
I think I started off at 25.
Oh, so that was a long, painful journey.
Yeah, it took me a long time to dig. I'm like, no, I can win it back. I can dig myself back. So I'm gonna double up on 100 now. And yeah, that did not work at all. So then we were in that same scenario. Like, now I can't pay rent, and I mean, it was a tough time in our marriage. But we learned from that. Right now, we're like, okay, we're gonna talk about finances. I'm not stepping for the casino because I've got an addicted personality. Like, it's not gonna work. So.
All right, we're not going to dive into an addiction subject because that'll add 3 hours.
Yeah, for reals.
Is there any other thing you wanted to make sure that got touched on, or you were hoping will get discussed going into this?
Oh man, I think we touched on even more so than I thought we were going to, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
all kinds of topics.
I think as long as we have a way for people to try and find us too, then that's great.
Yeah. Well, so tell people how to get in touch with you.
So if you're looking for the podcast, you can search us at Redefining Manliness Podcast on social media or on any podcast network. Just search Redefining Manliness, and you'll be able to find us there. If you want help on the personal finance side, you can find me at TMH Financial Coaching on social media, and I do all my stuff remote. I started it during COVID, so everything I do is remote. So. If
you have a secret account, call Thomas. He'll help you kind of maneuver that back in.
Yeah. All right, cool. Man. All right, Jonathan and Thomas from Redefining Manliness, appreciate you coming on. This is the 100% Dad Podcast, interviews with dads. Have an awesome day.
Thanks.